The House will be in order. The prayer will be offered by our guest chaplain, Pastor Aaron Durstein, Hopewell Christian Fellowship, Telford, Pennsylvania.
Let's pray. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as we gather in this chamber today, we recognize your sovereign presence over all time and in the foundations and calling of this great nation, the United States of America. We acknowledge our dependence upon you for salvation, for life, for breath, and for guidance. Remembering the words of Proverbs that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, we pray for the fear of the Lord and your divine wisdom for our legislators, that you would grant them the strength and the understanding to walk continually in your righteousness, justice, and truth. We remember your exhortation to us all to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly before our God. May this ever ring true of our nation, that we all as your servants may further your peace and bring godly light and freedom throughout this nation and to the world. Lord, let your kingdom come, let your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven, for the United States of America. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, we pray. Amen.
Amen. The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House the approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentleman from California, Mr. Panetta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please join me when I say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Without objection, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Fitzpatrick, is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to welcome and thank our guest chaplain, Pastor Aaron Durstein, for offering today's opening prayer. Pastor Durstein currently serves as a senior pastor for Hopewell Christian Fellowship in Telford, Pennsylvania. He received his academic and ministry training at Wheaton College before entering full-time ministry in 2002 and continues to serve as a staff writer with Eagles Wings Ministry in Buffalo, New York. For many years, Pastor Durstein has devoted himself to studying and teaching the Word of God, speaking at churches and events both here at home and abroad. He is also a gifted musician and a worship leader, using his musical talents across the country and internationally, including work amongst Jewish and Arab communities in Israel and the broader Middle East. Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for Pastor Durstein's prayer this morning. We thank him for his faithful ministry. Thank you, Pastor Durstein, and may God bless you in your continued service. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair will entertain up to 5 further requests for 1-minute speeches on each side of the aisle. For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition? Where we're at.
Good morning. I rise to address the House for 1 minute and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize and thank a friend and valued member of my team, John Kohler, who is moving on to a new opportunity. John has been on my staff since 2018 after graduating from The Ohio State University and serving in the houses of former Congressman Pat Tiberi and former Speaker of the House Paul Ryan. During that time, he distinguished himself through his dedication to public service and his commitment to the people of the 12th Congressional District. He served as a trusted advisor on foreign policy, defense, telecom, tech, and oversight, and helped lead our work on consumer protection policy, contributing to the bipartisan passage of the Yawning Safety Act. My team and I will greatly miss John and his beloved chocolate lab, Jeb, who brightened our office and welcomed every constituent who walked through our door. I am deeply grateful for his service, and I wish him continued success. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks as necessary.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I honor the life, the legacy of Lieutenant General Robert G. Gard, Jr. General Gard recently passed at 98 years young after a life dedicated to service, a 3-decade military career serving in Korea, in Vietnam, leadership at educational institutions across the country, and advocacy to ban landmines and for veterans. But while he was a well-decorated soldier and well-renowned for his service to the country, General Guard's impact on our Monterey community was unparalleled. After serving as the commanding general of the former Fort Ord, General Guard spent more than a decade as the president of the Monterey Institute of International Studies. With his leadership, General Guard bolstered the institution's international reputation while connecting with students, faculty, and the greater Monterey community. As he served at all levels, including helping us create the Central Coast Veterans Cemetery, my heart goes out to his wife, Janet, and all those whose lives he touched. I'm deeply, deeply grateful for General Guard's lifetime of loyalty, duty, and respect, and thankful for his legacy of service that affects everybody in the 19th Congressional District of California. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose? Gentleman from Utah seek recognition.
Mr. Speaker, I seek to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize a constituent, a volunteer, and a good friend, Lyman, on the occasion of his 75th birthday. Lyman has volunteered his time and energy on behalf of the people of Utah for many years. He shows up, he does the work, and he does it because he cares about this state and about the people in it. That kind of dedication deserves to be recognized. I'm thankful for Lyman and those like him who are willing to volunteer their time and serve the people of Utah and the people of the United States of America. Happy birthday, Lyman. May God bless you, and may God bless the great United States of America. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose? Gentleman from California seek recognition.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, this past week, my Republican colleagues voted to give Donald Trump a blank check to continue his military operation in Iran. And it's regular Americans who are paying the price. 13 U.S. service members killed and nearly 400 troops wounded. And this war could end up costing taxpayers $1 trillion in the long term. Here at home, Americans are being crushed by higher gas prices, rising health care costs, and bigger electric bills. Republicans had the chance to rein in a commander-in-chief who threatens war crimes, attacks our allies, and is wrecking our economy. They chose to let him run rampant. Americans cannot afford this insane, crazy agenda any longer. Pass a war powers resolution, rein in Donald Trump, and start investing in the American people at home, not bombs
Gentleman's
overseas.
time has expired.
And I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose? Gentleman from Wisconsin seek.
Unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman, without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the life and legacy of Green Bay Packers legend Bob Harlan, who passed away last month at the age of 89. Bob was born on September 9th, 1936 in Des Moines and graduated from Marquette University in 1958. He spent 6 years as the sports publicity director at Marquette before joining baseball's St. Louis Cardinals. In 1971, Bob was hired by the Packers as the assistant general manager. Over the next 18 years, he held various administrative positions with the team before being elected president and CEO in 1989, a role he held until 2008. Under Harlan's leadership, the Packers achieved significant success, including victory in Super Bowl 31, an NFC championship in 1997, and 13 winning seasons over a 16-year span from 1992 to 2007. Beyond these accomplishments, Bob is remembered for his approachable and personal leadership style. He was a caring leader who inspired trust and confidence in those around him. Bob survived by his beloved wife, Madeline, with whom he was married for nearly 67 years, his 3 grandchildren, 4 children, and 7 great-grandchildren. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all Packers fans and everyone across northeastern Wisconsin, I want to extend my sincere gratitude to Bob for his leadership and send our prayers to his family during this difficult time. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose? Gentlewoman from Pennsylvania seek recognition. Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, the world watched in awe as 3 astronauts from NASA and 1 astronaut from the Canadian Space Agency became the first people to travel to the moon in more than 50 years. I applaud Reed Weissman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen for their exploration and their excellence. Through Artemis II mission, their courageous 4 ventured farther from Earth than humankind has ever been, reminding us of our relative smallness and the love of our common humanity that binds us together. From 250,000 miles away, they saw a planet with no borders. Yet a feat as interstellar as Artemis is, it offers some local pride. Bally Ribbon Mills in Bally, PA manufactured a 3D woven material super strength textiles to support thermal protections for the spacecraft. McDaniel, a company from Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, manufactured the windows. And mission specialist Christina Cook, though a Michigander, is a Philly Ford fan.
Gentleman's time is expired.
Victor Glover summed it up. From up here, you look like one thing. We are all one people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentlewoman yields back. For what purpose, gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I rise to commemorate the 111th anniversary of the Armenian genocide and to honor the resilience and strength of the Armenian people. I'm deeply grateful for our vibrant Armenian American community in Southern California, who I cherish very dearly. Your history, your culture, and your contributions are an enduring part of our nation's history. As we reflect on this tragedy, we must also reaffirm our commitment to truth, education, and prevention. Because remembrance is not just about the past, it's about protecting the future. I will continue to stand with the Armenian community, and I will work to ensure that the promise of never again is upheld. I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, expand and amend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to celebrate Frederick Martinez El Pachá, a defining voice in the Dominican media as he celebrates the 3 years of El Pachá Oficial, his newest entertainment series. Known to millions of people as El Pachá, Martinez has been a legacy as one of the most dynamic and influential communicators in the Dominican community. From standout programs like Ritmo del Sábado, De Aquí para Allá con El Pachá, Sabadazo con El Pachá, he introduced a bold style that broke traditional molds and brought audiences closer to him. More than a presenter, Pachá is a cultural phenomenon. His improvisational talent and authentic voice have inspired generations of broadcasters while defining Caribbean entertainment. Today, we celebrate not just a career, but a legacy, one defined by passion, authenticity, and lasting impact. Pachá, Nueva York es tuyo.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate the remarkable achievement in Tennessee's 6th Congressional District. The Jackson County High School Blue Devils claimed the TSSAA Class 1A state championship in boys basketball. The Blue Devils of Jackson County did not just win a title, they earned it. Game by game, practice by practice, through early mornings and late nights in the gym, these young men from our corner of Tennessee rose above every opponent to stand atop the entire state. The coaches and the staff, your belief in these young men made champions out of them. To the parents and families who traveled every mile and cheered every possession, this title belongs to you as well. And to the community of Jackson County, you have every reason to be proud. Class 1A is where heart beats talent, where small towns prove that greatness has no zip code. The Blue Devils proved that in dramatic fashion this season, and the 6th District is better for it. I ask my colleagues to join me in congratulating the Jackson County Blue Devils state champions. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to commemorate the 160th anniversary of Antioch Missionary Baptist Church. 160 years ago, formerly enslaved persons got together along Buffalo Bayou with nothing but faith and freedom. And there they built a church with their own hands, their own bricks, their own will. That church is Antioch, which has served 4th Ward, downtown Houston, Texas. Antioch was a hub of activism since Reconstruction. It had its doors open during the Civil Rights Movement, where people needed organizing and courage. Under Pastor Lou McElroy and First Lady McElroy, that mission continues today. But Isaiah 43 tells us not to dwell on the former things. Antioch's impact is not just the past, it's present. The congregation is still educating, still organizing, still impacting, showing up for Houston each and every day. I ask my colleagues to join me in congratulating Antioch Missionary Baptist Church on 160 years of excellence and service to Houston, Texas, and to this nation. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair lays before the House an enrolled bill.
H.R. 2066, an act to amend the Small Business Investment Act of 1958 to exclude from the limit on leverage certain amounts invested in smaller enterprises located in rural or low-income areas and small businesses in critical technology areas and for other purposes.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Westerman, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 1189, I call up H.R. 5587 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 531, H.R. 5587, a bill to amend the Geothermal Steam Act of 1970 to waive the requirement for a federal drilling permit for certain activities, to exempt certain activities from the requirements of the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969 and for other purposes.
Pursuant to House Resolution 1189, the amendment in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee on Natural Resources, printed in the bill, is adopted, and the bill as amended is considered read. The bill as amended shall be debated for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Natural Resources or their respective designees. The gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Westerman, and the gentlewoman from Arizona, Ms. Ansari, each will control 30 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Westerman.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and to include extraneous material on H.R. 5587.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I rise today in support of H.R. 5587, the Harnessing Energy at Thermal Sources Act, or the HEATS Act. This is an important bill to help add to the energy needs that our country has. We can do that very responsibly. We can do it in a smarter way, in a more proactive way. And I want to thank Representative Young Kim for being a leader on this issue and working with our committee to bring this bipartisan legislation to the floor. H.R. 5587, the HEATS Act, is a common sense bill that would expedite the development of geothermal energy on non-federal surface lands where the federal subsurface estate is less than 50%. Currently, geothermal operators on non-federal land are required to undergo a full federal permitting process under the National Environmental Policy Act, the Endangered Species Act, and the National Historic Preservation Act if they intersect any quantity of federal subsurface resources, even if the federal mineral interest is minuscule. This process creates unnecessary delays for geothermal energy project developers who must already comply with rigorous state-level permitting requirements. H.R. 5587 would address this issue by alleviating the need for the Bureau of Land Management to issue permits for geothermal wells on state and private lands where the federal government holds an ownership interest of less than 50% of the subsurface geothermal estate. Crucially, this bill upholds strong environmental standards by stipulating that federal requirements may only be waived if operators receive drilling permits and comply with historic preservation laws on the state level.
Notably, the bill would not impact the royalties paid to the federal government. Therefore, it will not reduce the federal revenues generated by geothermal production. In fact, this legislation would actually increase federal revenues by reducing the administrative responsibilities of federal agencies and expediting the permitting process so that we can build more geothermal energy projects and do more development in that area. I want to emphasize the importance of this legislation. Again, energy demand is skyrocketing, and geothermal energy stands ready to meet the moment and bring gigawatts of new baseload power online. Out west, the Great Basin region encompasses swaths of California, Oregon, Utah, and most of Nevada. According to a recent study from the U.S. Geological Survey, this region alone hosts approximately 135 gigawatts of geothermal potential. To unleash geothermal energy's full potential, we must cut unnecessary red tape holding back key projects on these lands. By reducing duplicative federal requirements on state and private lands, this bill will give developers the regulatory certainty needed to spur greater investment in geothermal exploration and production. Again, this is an opportunity to do something proactive, to do something that is common sense, and something that I think we can all be proud of in the future. I urge my colleagues to join in supporting this bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Arkansas Reserves, gentlewoman from Arizona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituents and Americans across the country are struggling under the rising cost of gas, groceries, and electricity from President Trump's tariffs and endless wars. We should be spending our time finding ways to lower costs for families. Instead, we are moving on legislation that is just another chapter in the Republican playbook to gut common sense safeguards for energy development. I am a strong supporter of geothermal energy. Geothermal is a clean, reliable, affordable, and abundant form of electricity. But unfortunately, I have to oppose H.R. 5587, the HEATS Act, on the floor today. This is a complex issue. The bill waives the requirement for a federal drilling permit if a project starts on private or state lands and then drills underground into federal lands, provided the total project is made up of less than 50% federal subsurface land. The bill says these projects don't need to do any analysis under the National Environment Policy Act, or NEPA. They don't need to comply with the Endangered Species Act, and they don't need to comply with the National Historic Preservation Act, so long as the state has any law that vaguely, and I quote, addresses the preservation of historic properties. The majority says that this is about reducing duplicative reviews, but I see it as an irresponsible waiver of the federal government's obligation to steward our federal resources. Because in practice, this means that in areas where the federal government owns the underground mineral rights, but a rancher owns the surface rights to graze their cattle, or a farmer to grow their crops, underground development could take place without that landowner even knowing and without sufficient protections in place. The permit to drill process is the process surface landowners use to work with developers to make sure their lands and resources, like groundwater they depend on for their wells or springs, are protected when developers are drilling into federal minerals. And we're not talking about developers just tapping into a few feet of underground federal lands. Geothermal wells can extend horizontally for kilometers. While geothermal energy is exponentially safer than oil and gas development, that doesn't mean that developers should just skip their environmental reviews altogether. Landowners and communities have the right to provide input into how public lands are developed, whether that development is on the surface of the land or below it. Again, I am a strong supporter of geothermal energy. It provides 24/7 carbon-free energy and creates good jobs in the clean energy economy. For decades, geothermal energy was confined to naturally occurring hot water reservoirs, but recent technological breakthroughs have created next-generation geothermal systems that can be deployed in a wide range of conditions at competitive prices. At this rate of innovation, Low-cost, next-generation geothermal could soon be possible all across the country, not in decades, but in the next few years. This could be truly transformational for our energy system. Paired with wind and solar, geothermal can help us break free from fossil fuels and build the reliable, homegrown energy system that we need to fight climate change and tackle the affordability crisis. I have a bill, the Geothermal Gold Book Development Act, that's part of a package of 6 bills, 3 from Democrats, 3 from Republicans, that the Natural Resources Committee passed out of committee by unanimous consent. These bills, including my own, would all help make permitting easier for geothermal through common sense ways like increased coordination at BLM field offices, cost recovery authority, and some categorical exclusions that already exist for oil and gas development on previously disturbed lands. Those are the kinds of things that we should focus on that will actually help move the needle on projects. I've heard arguments that we should provide these waivers so that the Bureau of Land Management's limited staff can focus on bigger problems. I agree that staff in BLM field offices are overworked and understaffed. But let's be honest about the situation. The Bureau of Land Management doesn't have enough staff because the president continues to try to zero out the budget for renewable energy. And former presidential aide Elon Musk kicked off across-the-board staff cuts. You cannot break the system, then blame the broken system as your excuse to waive the law. When we waive those federal review obligations, we end up relying on a patchwork of state laws. Under state laws, what happens to the government-to-government consultation responsibilities required by the National Historic Preservation Act or federally protected endangered species? What if a state doesn't provide opportunities for public input or even public notice? Again, I strongly support geothermal energy development on our federal lands. It's a very promising and growing source of energy, but instead of spending floor time on geothermal legislation that everyone supports and could help stop skyrocketing electricity bills, we're debating a bill to solve a problem that may not even be a burden on the industry. I'm happy to continue to work across the aisle to advance geothermal legislation, but unfortunately, I must oppose this legislation. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman from Arizona reserves. The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of similarities on both sides of the aisle, but there's a big difference. The similarities are that I think both sides of the aisle support geothermal energy. It's similar that we talk about inflation and high cost and how that affects Americans. The difference is, on this side of the aisle, we actually pass policies that will help those things. On the other side of the aisle, they vote against those policies. We talk about the high cost of living. Republicans voted to give Americans a huge tax cut last year. All the Democrats voted against it. We talk about high health care costs. Republicans voted to send $50 billion to help with rural health care. All Democrats voted against it. Today we're talking about geothermal energy and the opportunities that are there. We have an opportunity to help make that happen more. Republicans are supporting it. I believe some Democrats will actually support this legislation. But there's a difference between saying you want something to happen and actually voting to make it happen. And again, I thank Representative Kim for her leadership on geothermal energy, and I yield her as much time as she may consume.
The gentlewoman is recognized for as much time as she may consume from California.
Thank you, Chairman, for yielding. And Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of my bill, H.R. 5587, the Harnessing Energy at Thermal Sources Act, or the HITS Act. Republicans ran on a simple promise: to unleash American energy dominance and lower prices for families. The HITS Act delivers on those commitments. Geothermal energy is a powerful domestic energy source that can generate electricity and heat homes and buildings without relying on foreign adversaries or suppliers. America has enormous geothermal resources sitting right beneath our feet. My state of California has some of the richest geothermal reserves in the world. But burdensome permitting requirements are keeping that energy locked away. The HITS Act fixes that by cutting red tape and waiving federal drilling permit requirements for geothermal wells on state and local lands. Operators will still go through a rigorous state-level permitting process, but they no longer will be subjected to duplicative federal requirements that slow production, raise costs, and kill jobs. This means more American energy coming online faster, lower energy costs for working families, and a stronger domestic supply chain that doesn't depend on adversaries like China. H.R. 5587 is a common sense, pro-growth measure that lowers energy costs and strengthens our national security. I want to thank Representative Gray for working with me and co-leading this effort, and to Chairman Bruce Westerman for your work to accelerate geothermal production and advance American energy independence. I urge my colleagues to support the HITS Act. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields back. The gentleman from Arkansas reserves. And the gentlewoman from Arizona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield as much time as he may consume to the gentleman from California, Mr. Huffman.
The gentleman from California is recognized for as much time as he may consume.
I thank the gentlelady and thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, in the spirit of geothermal energy, we're sure hearing a lot of hot air from the other side with this fantastical narrative that Republicans, I guess, are now lowering costs and saving health care. The American people can decide whether they want to believe those whoppers. But today, it is at least refreshing to see our colleagues across the aisle tiptoeing back in the direction of this all-of-the-above energy policy that they always swore they supported, but for the past year plus, they have cheerleaded Donald Trump's insane war on clean energy that is trying to destroy an entire sector to surrender American leadership to China and others and drive up utility bills for the American people. But nevertheless, I welcome the fact that we're talking today about geothermal energy. Like the gentlelady from Arizona, the ranking member, I like geothermal energy a lot. This is something that we should be working on together in a bipartisan way. I represent the largest geothermal energy plant in America in my district, and I'm proud of it. I want to see more of it. And good geothermal energy projects can move forward with bipartisan support and with very expeditious permitting. But good geothermal energy projects don't need the kind of sweeping waiver that is proposed in this legislation, which simply misses the mark. So let's talk about that. Under this bill, a geothermal project would no longer require a federal drilling permit if it is on land where the surface is not federally owned, but the subsurface is significantly, up to 50% of the acreage. Now, while this may sound innocuous, oh, it's just, subsurface, it's below what we can see with our eyes. Without a federal permit, the core safeguards for development affecting federal resources would totally disappear. That includes protections under the National Environmental Policy Act, the National Historic Preservation Act, and the Endangered Species Act. And all of it would be waived for geothermal exploration, for development, and for the production activities that would be covered under this bill. That goes entirely too far, and it's bad news for tribes, for communities, and property owners on the ground. Again, good projects don't need this kind of sweeping free pass from environmental review. Under the circumstances laid out in this bill, all federal oversight goes away, along with public input and consultation requirements, and that includes tribal consultation. It takes away opportunities for public involvement that can make projects better. It takes away the convening process that brings federal, tribal, state, and local entities to the table so they can identify basic health and safety risks, so they can flag concerns and work through conflicts and impacts to protect the resources that are owned by the American people, even if they're below the ground, even if they're not something you can see with the naked eye. Now, this public input and compliance with federal laws like NEPA and others is essential to building a solid foundation for our clean energy future. We need these type of energy projects, but we need to do them right. Because let's be clear, underground drilling can still have impacts above the ground, like sinking, subsidence, settlement of lands, earthquakes, and other resources like groundwater. Geothermal development is a lot safer than oil and gas, but there still are some risks. It's not zero, and the public deserves the opportunity to engage. I will say that this bill is also playing games with percentages. The threshold is set at 50% federal subsurface ownership, and that may sound trivial, it may sound reasonable, but even my rudimentary math skills tell me that 50% of a project that might be 2,000 acres is 1,000 acres. That's a lot of land. That's a lot of potential impacts. It is not insignificant. And another alarming point about this bill, without a federal drilling permit, it creates a gray area for underground injection control permits, which allows for these permits allow for the assessment of potential seismic activity. How could we not look at that? These injection control permits aren't in our Natural Resource Committee's jurisdiction, and this is something that I brought up in the markup. I urged the majority to consider working with the Energy and Commerce Committee to add clarifying language to make sure those permits would still be required. And unfortunately, the majority failed to address that concern. Now, there's no clear opportunity to require bonds if this legislation passes, and that would otherwise need to happen because we're talking about federal resources. What happens if there is a subsidence event within the federal resource? States and property owners would be on the hook. We're talking about publicly owned resources here, even if you can't see them. And the federal government has an obligation to steward them responsibly. Now, the last thing I want to emphasize is that this bill is clearly not just about geothermal energy. This is the proverbial camel's nose under the tent. The oil and gas industry has been trying to get this same policy, this same broad waiver for subsurface federal lands for years. This is a precedent we should not set, and mark my words, if this legislation advances before this sputtering Congress comes to an end later this year, you will see another bill where the oil and gas industry is seeking the same treatment. To deploy clean energy, we don't need to create shortcuts and exemptions from oversight. What we need is to fully fund our agencies so that they can have the capacity for thorough, efficient, and timely reviews. I would be happy to work with my colleagues across the aisle to advance responsible and well-balanced geothermal and other renewable energy development on federal lands, but I have to urge my colleagues to vote no on this poorly drafted legislation, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlewoman from Arizona reserves.
Reserve the balance of my time. Thank you.
The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I have to ask the question, what is well-balanced and what is fair about requiring a duplicative process? It's almost from the minority's testimony like there's no permitting that will happen. We're talking about a well that's drilled on state or private property close to federal property. The surface disturbance is all on the state or private property. They have to go through the state permitting process, which is very rigorous. It's looking at the same things the federal permitting process looks at. So the argument not to pass this bill is that we want to put on a belt and suspenders. We want to make the developers go through the total duplicative process because the underground well that's thousands of feet below ground will be receiving thermal energy that's under the federal estate, and all of the historical preservation, all the NEPA, all the ESA has been looked at under the state permitting process. Again, the surface disturbance would not be on federal land. You're only talking about the migration of thermal energy thousands of feet below ground, and we're saying it's reasonable and fair and a good process to make a developer go through double permitting and opening up Pandora's box for people who, for whatever reason, don't like geothermal energy. We'll have all these federal statutes and the broken permitting process to stop geothermal energy projects. If we're serious about producing more energy for this country, if we're serious about being energy independent, if we're serious about developing energy sources like geothermal energy, then this is a pragmatic, proactive way to make that happen. It removes duplicity, and it makes the process make a little bit more sense. Mr. Speaker, I have no further request for time. I'm prepared to close, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Arkansas reserves. The gentlewoman from Arizona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In closing, even good energy sources need good permitting policy. I am a strong supporter of geothermal energy, but the HEATS Act could undermine the on-the-ground support and good environmental track record that geothermal currently enjoys. The HEATS Act empowers one set of landowners at the expense of their neighbors. This bill allows developers to skip federal permitting when drilling from their property into federally owned subsurface minerals, which often sit under a neighbor's private property. The federal permit process gives surface landowners who happen to live above federal minerals a say in what happens beneath their homes. And what happens underground doesn't always stay underground. Drilling can cause earthquakes and sinkholes or accidentally contaminate drinking or irrigation water. State laws do not always require the same protections for surface landowners, especially if they are not the ones doing the drilling. And without a federal drilling permit, the federal government can't require financial assurances from developers to cover the cost of cleanup if surface damages do happen. That means landowners or federal taxpayers will be on the hook to pay for the cleanup. This bill would eliminate real, meaningful protections for landowners, not just red tape. I'm disappointed that this bill is the bill that the majority has chosen to bring to the House floor rather than the bipartisan package of real, common-sense permitting solutions for geothermal that the Natural Resources Committee unanimously supported. That package includes my own Geothermal Gold Book Development Act to standardize best permitting practices across the Bureau of Land Management to responsibly speed up geothermal development. I hope to keep working across the aisle to advance geothermal energy, but this particular bill is a step in the wrong direction. I urge opposition, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman yields back the balance of her time. The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, in closing, again, I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 5587. These reforms will both streamline the permitting process for geothermal energy projects and reduce agency workloads, which will allow BLM to focus on projects that actually have a majority federal nexus. States, as I've already mentioned, have robust requirements and regulations for developing energy resources within their borders. So by eliminating duplicative federal level bureaucracy, we will help stop the things that are impeding geothermal energy development. This, quite simply, is just common sense. Accelerating geothermal energy production and deployment is a win for our economy. It's a win for national security, and it's a win for American energy dominance. Again, on this floor today, and not too much longer, we're going to have an opportunity to vote for American energy, for American workers, and for common sense and for doing the right things. I've heard many times, I support this, but. There's always a but. But what about this or what about that? Today is an opportunity to actually vote for something good. I urge my colleagues to support this good bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
All time for debate. The gentleman yields back. All time for debate has expired pursuant to House Rule Resolution 1189. The previous question is ordered and with the bill as amended. The question is on the engrossed and third reading of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Third reading.
A bill to amend the Geothermal Steam Act of 1970 to waive the requirement for a federal drilling permit for certain activities, to exempt certain activities from the requirements of the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969, and for other purposes.
The question is on passage of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is on the...
Mr. Speaker, on that I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote of the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote. On this vote, the yeas are 231, the nays are 186. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Okay. Oh, good. It's all here.
From Indiana seek recognition.
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that when the House adjourns today, it adjourn to meet at noon on Monday next for morning hour debate and 2 p.m. for legislative business.
Without objection. The chair will entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition? Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize Carter Pierce, a senior at Du Bois Area High School, for winning an international vocabulary competition. Vocabulary Bowl is sponsored by Vocabulary.com, invites more than 900,000 high school students to compete in a virtual competition which lasts over a month. Carter, who placed first, mastered over 8,000 words. After winning in the fall, he competed in the spring competition and mastered all the featured words. Carter is also a member of the Du Bois Area High School Vocabulary Quiz Bowl team and has helped the team win multiple regional competitions since joining 2 years ago. Carter has helped the team win 4 state titles. Carter graduates later this spring and plans to major in history. His goal is to become a history teacher. Mr. Speaker, this is a fantastic achievement, and I thank Carter for representing Pennsylvania so well. I wish Carter all the best in his future endeavors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Missouri seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today during Second Chance Month to raise awareness of the challenges faced by millions of individuals with criminal records transitioning back into society. Every day, individuals with criminal records are held back from the opportunity to rejoin society and contribute. Instead of letting their past define them, we must create pathways that allow these folks to rewrite their histories. As a former prosecutor, I'm passionate about diversion programs that help low-level, nonviolent offenders especially avoid incarceration by connecting them with the treatment, support, and life skills training to break the cycle of recidivism. That's why I introduced the Bridge Act last month, which expands pathways to employment and economic freedom for justice-impacted adults and youth. One bad situation should not define a person's entire story. Let's give people a second chance to make a better life for themselves. When we do so, it has the added benefit of also making our community safer. Thank you. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Address the House for up to 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today with a heavy heart to honor the life and legacy of my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Paul Brad Brechtelsbauer, who passed away on April 15th after a courageous battle with lung cancer. I had the distinct privilege of knowing Brad for more than 40 years. We went to college, medical school together, and later practiced medicine side by side in eastern North Carolina. From the very beginning, he was the kind of man you were proud to call friend, steady, humble, and deeply committed to others. Brad was a gifted physician, accomplished musician of many instruments, Most of all, a trusted and beloved friend. For nearly 3 decades in Greenville, he cared for patients as an ENT doctor, becoming a regional leader in cochlear implantation, giving so many the gift of hearing their very first words. He also gave back through teaching and service, shaping future physicians in Eastern North Carolina at ECU School of Medicine and contributing to the broader medical community with distinction. Beyond his accomplishments, he will be remembered most for being the great person that he was. Though he literally towered over other people at 6'9", he was known as a gentle giant, kind, compassionate, beloved by his patients and colleagues and all who knew him. I recall the phone call when I spoke with him first about his lung cancer diagnosis. Even in the face of a very daunting illness, he showed remarkable courage, compassion, and grace. He spent the last few years of his life on his beloved farm, riding his tractor, tinkering with equipment, and playing in his cherished medical group. As with many in our medical community, I will miss Brad dearly. May God grant comfort and peace to his family in this difficult time. Thank you. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition?
To request unanimous consent to address the House and to extend and revise my
Without
remarks.
objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to recognize the National Inventors Hall of Fame STEM Middle School chess team as Ohio's 13th Congressional District's Champion of the Week. On March 8th, the Akron STEM Middle School students brought home both a first place and third place team trophy from the Ohio State Chess Championship, along with several individual awards. Their outstanding performance reflects both their talent and their dedication to excellence. Under the leadership of Coach Don Glokar, who has been guiding chess teams for more than 2 decades, these students have developed not only competitive skill, but also discipline and resilience. As Coach Glokar says, the goal is simple: work hard, stay focused, and enjoy the game. Through hours of practice and competition, these young scholars are sharpening critical thinking skills, learning to anticipate challenges, and building confidence that will serve them well beyond the classroom. Their passion for chess demonstrates that success is not only measured in trophies, but in growth, perseverance, and teamwork. It is always a pleasure to recognize young people doing remarkable things who help make our district the birthplace of champions. Achievements like these showcase the strength of our community and the bright future of Northeast Ohio. These students' hard work has certainly made our district proud, and we can't wait to see what the future holds. Again, I want to congratulate the chess students of the National Inventors Hall of Fame STEM Middle School on their accomplishments and for being named Champions of the Week. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Oklahoma seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor the life of LeFlore County Deputy Thomas Walker LeMay, who was shot and killed in the line of duty on Sunday, April 19, 2026. As we all know, greater love has no one than this that would lay down his life for his friends. Walker's sacrifice while upholding his duty to protect the citizens of LeFlore County will be long remembered. My words can't fully convey our gratitude for the safety of these brave police officers and that they provide to all of us safety and comfort in our homes. Believing the Psalms 34 promise that the Lord is near to the brokenhearted, may Deputy LeMay's family, friends, colleagues find the peace that surpasses understanding, even in the midst of their grief. With that, I yield the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, the American people are angry at the corruption in our politics while food and gas prices go up and the American dream seems dead. People feel they have no say while the rich and powerful call the shots. We need an administration to actually stand up to this corrupt power structure. First, appoint a special prosecutor to investigate and prosecute the Epstein class that abused and raped young girls. Second, call a constitutional convention to overturn Citizens United. This Congress isn't going to take on tech billionaires or private health insurance. Go to the American people and have 2/3 of the states pass an amendment to overturn Citizens United, ban super PACs and money in politics. Third, ban the insider trading on Polymarket, Kalshi, and the stock market, where people have made millions because of this illegal, immoral war in Iran. Our founders would be rolling over in their grave. We need to restore power to the people.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Washington seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and then revise or extend my remarks.
Without objection, gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to honor the dedication and the public service of Police Chief Ken Roski, who recently retired after nearly 4 decades with the Pasco Police Department. Ken has served in multiple roles in the department and always with honor and distinction. For decades, Ken's fingerprints have been on efforts to ensure officers' needs are met and the public trust remains strong. Some examples of his work include leading efforts to make Pasco accredited by both state Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs and the International Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. He was also a driving force behind the department's adoption of equipping officers with body cameras, and he brought a regional police academy to Pasco, opening opportunity for people to serve who normally would not be able to do so. Ken, I speak on behalf of the entire Pasco community in thanking you for your service, and I wish you the best going forward. And I am fortunate and honored to be able to call you friend. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me recognize the outstanding work of the White Plains Greenburgh branch of the NAACP, led by the energetic Janice Griffith and powered by women and men in these two communities who have stood up for diversity, equity, and inclusion at a time when these policies are under assault and elimination by this federal administration. The branch reaches into the Fairview section of Greenburgh, the urban neighborhoods of White Plains, and well beyond that, into Rivertown villages and suburban cul-de-sacs. Standing up for affordable housing, better health care, educational resources, economic growth for Black Americans and for all of those who are in need, the youth, our seniors, the White Plains Greenburgh branch of the NAACP has celebrated our past and has pointed us forward to the future. From the floor of the House of Representatives, we salute the White Plains Greenburgh branch of the NAACP for their timeless and important, tremendous civic contribution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Wyoming seek recognition? Without objection, gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
I rise today to recognize and congratulate Cody and Crystal Myers on being named honorees for the Boys and Girls Club's 6th Annual Awards and Recognition Breakfast this morning. This annual ceremony in Riverton recognizes distinguished individuals who have demonstrated the best of Wyoming's values with a lending hand to the next generation. Cody and Crystal have gone above and beyond to deliver service, mentorship, and community leadership to Wyoming youth for more than a decade. Cody Myers served as a school resource officer for 18 years, wearing multiple hats, coaching, teaching, and shaping our young people into the resilient men and women of tomorrow. Today, Cody continues to serve as campus security director at Central Wyoming College. Crystal Myers was crowned Miss Rodeo Wyoming in 2007 and went on to carry the torch as National Director for the Miss Rodeo Wyoming Association for 11 years. Today, she continues to build the confidence of our young people as a preschool special education para-educator in Shoshone. Cody and Crystal Myers represent the best of Wyoming, and their recognition is well-deserved, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Minnesota seek recognition?
And expand my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the life and legacy of Dave Becking, a South Minneapolis small business owner and a lifelong community activist. Dave dedicated his life to advancing justice and advocating for meaningful policing reform in Minnesota. From 2008 to 2010, he served on the Minneapolis City Civilian Review Authority, where he worked tirelessly to improve police accountability. He joined Community United Against Police Brutality, helping the organization reform police training standards through the Minnesota Board of Peace Officers Standard and Training. After a fire burned down their facility in 2012, Dave stepped up and bought them a new facility that continues to house multiple activist groups today. Dave will be remembered for his generosity, commitment to peace and justice, and deep love for his family, friends, and community. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute or to extend my remarks.
Without objection, gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
I rise today to honor the life and legacy of Colonel Frank Ott, my uncle, who made his final takeoff on February 18, 2022. To me, he was family. To our nation, he was a hero and a patriot. From a one-room schoolhouse in North Dakota to the cockpit of America's most advanced aircraft, Colonel Ott lived a life of discipline, courage, and purpose. He earned his wings in 1955 and went on to fly and command missions in the F-86, F-100, B-47, B-52, U-2, and EB-66, amassing over 5,000 flight hours, including hundreds in combat in Vietnam. His decorations reflect not just achievement, but a willing sacrifice for the nation he loved. But beyond the uniform, he was a man of quiet strength, kind, humble, and deeply devoted to family. He never sought recognition, only purpose. Today, we remember not just his service, but his spirit, a true patriot, a devoted husband, a beloved uncle. May we strive to live with the same integrity and vigor he showed every day. Semper Fidelis.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Oregon seek recognition? Without objection, gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, Amalia, an 18-month-old, was sent to Dilley detention facility, where she began to fall ill. Her parents waited in the health clinic line 8 separate times, begging for little Amalia's life. It wasn't until Amalia's blood oxygen levels were low enough to kill off part of her tiny brain that ICE took her concerns seriously. Amalia was admitted to the ICU, where she was diagnosed with COVID-19, pneumonia, RSV, and was in severe respiratory distress. As a mother, I know that even just one of these diagnoses can be a death sentence for a toddler, and this story is far from unique. Children as young as 2 months old are being held at Dilley for more than 40 days, which is double the legal limit, under nightmarish conditions, worm-infested food, unsanitary drinking water, and mothers being separated from their children, all while being screamed at by agents. In any other setting, we would call this out for what it is: child abuse. While detained babies sit on lawyers' laps to represent themselves in court, Trump is spending billions of dollars on ICE, which could be used to improve the lives of hardworking families who are just trying to provide stable homes for their children. Trump can stop this chaos now, but the emotional damage is done. The fear, instability, and trauma these children have experienced will never disappear. It will linger for generations. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Washington seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to welcome Greater Spokane Incorporated on their annual fly-in to Washington, D.C. Greater Spokane Incorporated is a regional chamber of commerce and a foundational advocate to all business across Spokane, serving as a supportive organization that drives jobs growth throughout our region and promotes public policy opportunities. Because of the tremendous impact of GSI on our community, Spokane region can expand business opportunities and promote a better life. It's always wonderful to see GSI every year. and they are most welcome in our nation's capital. And to all of you in Eastern Washington, please know that I see enough people in this Washington on a daily basis. You are all most welcome, and it would be wonderful to host you here as well. Thank you, Mr. President, or Mr. Speaker. And with that, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition? Without objection, gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Earth Day season, I rise to represent the heart of the Great Lakes, Lake Erie's Western Basin. Our Great Lakes region is home to the largest system of fresh surface water on Earth. This gift we hold in trust for future generations to come. These fresh waters are not only our heritage, they are our economy, our health, our source of life. Water and energy are closely linked. At a time when energy demand is rising and energy bills up 13%, we must produce clean energy that lowers costs, creates jobs, and protects our air and water. Northwest Ohio understands stewardship. Through efforts like the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, we have proven that when we steward our environment, especially water and energy, we invest in our people's future. This Earth Day season, let us choose a future that is cleaner, more affordable, and more secure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Florence Kowalska of Bucks County, Pennsylvania, a leader, a friend who has devoted her life to helping families build not just houses, but lasting foundations. For more than 14 years as CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Bucks County, Florence has helped create stability and open doors to new possibilities for families, so many in our region who she's touched forever. Under her leadership, Habitat Bucks partnered with over 50 homeowners, repaired more than 400 homes, and launched innovative programs that ensure lasting affordability for years to come. I've had the privilege of seeing those moments when a family steps into their home for the first time, not just receiving keys, but beginning a new chapter. As Florence retires, we thank her for her legacy that has truly strengthened our community. Congratulations, Florence. Best wishes in this next chapter. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a bittersweet moment as I rise today to honor my Deputy Chief of Staff and Legislative Director, Emily DeHovney Silverberg. Born in the Bronx and raised in New Jersey, Emily joined my office in 2012 as an intern and will leave Capitol Hill this week after 14 years on our team. As my advisor on mental health and addiction policy, she's worked tirelessly to increase Americans' access to behavioral health treatment. She's helped grow the Bipartisan Addiction Treatment and Recovery Caucus, which I co-chair, to more than 100 members. Among the more than 20 bills Emily has helped pass into law are the Mainstreaming Addiction Treatment, or MAT Act, which dramatically expanded treatment for opioid use disorder, and bills to reauthorize the national plan to address Alzheimer's and to establish the first ever national plan to end Parkinson's. Emily is here in the gallery today with her family. I thank you, Emily, for your many years of dedicated advocacy and public service. From your start as an intern, your curiosity led you to involve yourself in many, many issue areas. You've filled your heart with passion. You've made a difference for those that you may never, ever meet. For that, I am eternally grateful. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Montana seek recognition?
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the House and Senate debate over housing legislation, I fear that one community is being left behind, and those are our tribes. 30 years ago, Congress passed a landmark tribal housing law known as NAHASDA, which created the Indian Housing Block Grant Program to promote self-determination. And unfortunately, Congress has not updated this law since 2008, and has allowed its authorization to lapse after 2013. This is simply not acceptable. HUD Secretary Scott Turner said it best: NAHASDA works and needs to be reauthorized. So I introduced the bipartisan and bicameral Native American Housing Assistance and Self-Determination Modernization Act to eliminate red tape in Indian country and further incentivize private financing. I urge my colleagues to support this important legislation because it is Congress's responsibility to address the housing needs of all Americans. On that, Mr. Speaker, I yield.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Vermont seek recognition? Without objection, gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Speaker, Ghislaine Maxwell lured countless children into Epstein's global pedophile ring. She was found guilty of sex trafficking and sentenced in our courts. But the Trump admin moved her to a minimum security facility, a club-fed facility. And whistleblowers tell us that she is being waited on hand and foot. Now, Republicans on the Oversight Committee are openly floating the possibility of a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell. This woman organized the rape of 14-year-old girls. The judge who oversaw the case said, quote, "The evidence established that Ms. Maxwell directly and repeatedly and over the course of many years participated in a horrific scheme to entice, transport, and traffic underage girls, some as young as 14, for sexual abuse by and with Jeffrey Epstein. Obviously, she should not be in a cushy minimum security prison. She should not be pardoned. There cannot be one system of justice for the powerful and another for everyone else. This administration must end the special treatment for the Epstein class. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Indiana seek recognition? Without objection, gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize the 3rd annual AI Maritime Maneuvering Challenge held by Trine University this past weekend in my district. Trine hosted students from universities across Indiana at Pokagon State Park to test their autonomous, low-profile sea vessels. Students competed against one another through a variety of mission sets, including navigating obstacles, evading detection, and retrieving items. While competing in the event, while it's an accomplishment on its own, these students are simultaneously helping to secure our homeland. The challenge operates in conjunction with the Naval Surface Warfare Center Crane Division, with the goal to develop the talent needed to support the Department of War. This project is a shining example of how student ingenuity and Hoosier collaboration can lead to real results that benefit our nation and a great experience for our students. I want to congratulate all of the participating students on their accomplishments, and I look forward to seeing the continued success of the AI Maritime Maneuvering Program. And I'll yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition? Without objection, gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, at the heart of northeastern North Carolina, the Hallawasaponi Indian tribe exemplifies a vibrant heritage and traditions that deserve to be celebrated and recognized. As evident at the 61st blooming of the Dogwood Powwow. For years, the Hallawasaponi have enriched our communities with their history, their resilience, and their culture. Yet, they still await federal recognition that is rightfully theirs. It's time for us to stand firm and stand with the Hallawasaponi as we've stood with the Lumbee. Congress must pass H.R. 2929, the Hallawasaponi Indian Tribe of North Carolina Act. It's time to prioritize their rightful place in history, not only for today, but for the next generation. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition? Without objection, gentleman from Florida is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today I rise to commemorate the 200th birthday of Naval Air Station Pensacola, the cradle of naval aviation, the home of the beloved Blue Angels. For more than 2 centuries, this installation has stood at the forefront of military innovation as the Navy's first permanent air station and the birthplace of naval aviation and training. NAS Pensacola transformed into a defining pillar of our national defense. From its earliest days in training just a handful of aviators and operating only a few aircraft, Pensacola quickly became the proving ground for the future of warfare in the air. It trained the Navy's first aviators. It helped pioneer carrier aviation techniques, and at the offset of World War I, stood as our nation's only naval training station. Through every generation since, NAS Pensacola has continued to shape the course of history, preparing pilots, the challenges evolving into a premier training hub for Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and allied aviators from around the world. Today, NAS Pensacola remains as one of the Navy's most vital training platforms, supporting more than 23,000 military civilian personnel, graduating tens of thousands of members each year. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition? Without objection, gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every April, we recognize Fair Housing Month in honor of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, also known as the Fair Housing Act, legislation that prohibited discrimination in housing and expanded opportunity here in America. Yet nearly 60 years later, the dream of home ownership is slipping away for far too many. As members of Congress, we must act. That's why I've introduced legislation to establish, for the first time, a standardized national way to track housing loss. It's why I've introduced bipartisan legislation to help communities convert vacant buildings into affordable housing. There's much more we can do, from supporting tax credits for first-time home buyers to expanding access to small-dollar mortgages. There are also things we should undo, like reversing Trump's tariffs on building materials and reinstating inclusionary borrowing programs that have been canceled by this administration. Every American deserves a safe roof over their head. This Fair Housing Month, let us all recommit to that goal. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Mississippi seek recognition? Without objection, gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the life of Kevin Daugherty of Van Cleve, Mississippi, who passed away on April 8, 2026, after a courageous battle with cancer. Kevin was a devoted husband, father, man of faith, well as a dedicated public servant. He served the city of Pascagoula for nearly 20 years as a lieutenant with the fire department and continued service with Jackson County Fire, always answering the call to protect his community. Those who knew Kevin knew a man who loved his family deeply, cherished time with his wife and sons, and never met a stranger. Whether at the firehouse, on the water, or in the woods, Kevin brought people together and lived a life rooted in faith and service. He was especially proud of his sons Cole and Logan, and the time they spent together meant everything to him. He is survived by his wife Jennifer and his sons Cole and Logan, and our prayers are with them during this very difficult time. Kevin Daugherty represented the very best of South Mississippi, a life of service, strength, and a love for others. He will not be forgotten. Rest in peace, brother.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
To address the body for 1 minute without objection.
Without objection, gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to honor the life and legacy of our California United States Senator and Anaheim Mayor John Seymour. A proud Marine, Mr. Seymour served our great nation from 1955 to 1959 before returning home to pursue his education at UCLA. Mr. Seymour began his public service in the 1970s, first as Anaheim City Councilman and later serving as our mayor from 78 to 1982. Later, he continued his service as United States Senator from 1991 to 1992, where he earned a reputation as a pragmatic leader willing to work across the aisle on issues such as education, public health, and responsible governance. After elected office, Mr. Seymour continued his dedication to public service by advancing opportunities for working American families as a leader of the Southern California Housing Development Corporation. Mr. Speaker, today we honor the life and legacy of Senator John Seymour. Go Bruins. Mr. Speaker, I yield.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Asked to address the House for 1 minute, unanimous consent, and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our nation is celebrating 250 years since our founding. During this time, we reflect on the patriots who founded this country, but I also want to recognize those who have kept it strong. In my district, that story goes back nearly a century. In the early 1900s, Stuart Kramer, a Naval Academy graduate, and his family purchased a small textile mill in North Carolina and built around the town of Cramerton. By 1929, they developed a lightweight khaki fabric that would go on to clothe millions of American service members throughout World War II and beyond. You can see this placard showing a sign showing that in town. When World War II broke out and demand surged, the Kramer family could have held onto their patent for profit, but instead they released it so that factories across the country could produce more uniforms for our troops and help us win the war. Mr. Speaker, that is true patriotism. Our nation's 250th anniversary, let's honor everyday patriots who carry forward the legacy of freedom and pass it on to stronger than they found it. With that, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
And to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today with more heartbreaking stories about the victims of the Trump administration's violent and immoral immigration actions. In my visits to Delaney Hall, I have met with fathers, mothers, and even a pastor who pose no threat to the safety of our communities. Mr. Speaker, I carry with me the story of a constituent who has protected status in this country, but for over a year has been detained in Texas and persistently threatened with efforts to remove her to a third country. Each time ICE failed to do so, until last week when I found out that in the dead of night, ICE took her from this country, from her family, and where she is supposed to be protected, to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where if we do not get her back, she will die. For 15 months, we have seen the Trump administration tear apart our communities, kill American citizens in broad daylight, and inflict unimaginable pain on so many, including our children. And in each unspeakable moment, Republicans have been silent, and they have been complicit in the brutalization of our neighbors. Their silence will never be forgotten, but whatever they choose to do or not to do, they need know this. House Democrats and the American people will never bend. We will never relent, and we will fight on until we finally end this national nightmare. I yield back.
Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 3rd, 2025, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and still I rise. And still I rise. And I rise today as an unbought, unbossed, liberated Democrat. I rise today to speak in the name of we the people. We the people, Mr. Speaker, who believe in liberty and justice for all, as presented to us and as we pledge in the Pledge of Allegiance, liberty and justice for all. I rise in the name of liberty and justice for all, Mr. Speaker, because while there are many people in this country who are not receiving the justice for all, I will focus today on one group of people. And I assure you This could go on endlessly if time permitted. But I want to focus on one group of people today because they have been treated unjustly. I want to focus on a group of people who are there to protect us, to defend us, to assure us that when we board a plane and when we're at 35,000 feet at 500 miles per hour, we will be there safe, we will be secure. There is nothing more important than the structural integrity of that plane when you're at 35,000 feet moving at 500 miles per hour. I rise in the name of justice for the TSA workers, Mr. Speaker. And I rise in the name of justice for the TSA workers for many reasons, a multiplicity of reasons. But today, I have to focus on just a couple. One, as I made my way through the airport in Houston, Texas, when we were having the shutdown, as it were, and I made my way to my gate, my destination was Washington, D.C. As I did this, one of the TSA workers approached me, and her words to me were words that penetrated really to my heart. She said, "Help us. Help us. I want you to know I've not forgotten you. I've not forgotten the TSA workers. And I have shown my solidarity with the TSA workers by withholding payment to me until they get payment for themselves. I actually had the payroll department here in the Congress to withhold my pay. I want to be in solidarity with them because this is an injustice being perpetrated upon them, and I want them to know that I stand with them. As I said, there are many others who are suffering similar injustices, but I want to focus on them today because of a commitment that I made to this worker. I told her I wouldn't forget them, and I want to help them. So above and beyond what we will ultimately do at some point, and I'm not sure who knows when, but at some point we will restore the proper pay to them at the proper time. But that will not eradicate the injustice that has been perpetrated upon them and that is being perpetuated even as I speak now. I rise today to say that I have examined the salaries of the TSA workers, and in so doing, I have concluded that not only should they get their salaries restored and paid at the proper times, but they should also get a raise. The TSA workers deserve a raise. And I have a chart with me. Many of you are familiar with my cane. I have a chart with me, and I use my cane as a pointer. This chart will validate what I say about the TSA workers being underpaid. They do a tremendous job. They protect us. They cannot make a mistake. They have to be right 100% of the time. That one time that they miscue can cause someone to be harmed or possibly a life to be lost at 35,000 feet, 500 miles per hour. So I've examined their salaries, and here's what I found. That the salary first year for a TSA worker is $40,000. Well, I juxtaposed that salary to a firefighter in Houston, Texas, first year, $59,000. Houston police officer, $78,500. These salaries, as you can see, exceed what the TSA worker receives first year salaries. Well, I've gone on to show second year salary, 10-year salaries, and I am proposing, pursuant to a bill that I've already filed, H.R. 8411. H.R. 8411. This bill, I shall read what it says under the title of bill, to increase the annual rate of base pay, to increase the annual rate of basic pay for career employees of the Transportation Security Administration, that's the TSA, and for other purposes. It goes on to say in Section 2, TSA employee pay increase. That's the style of the section. And the language under it, under A, reads, in general, beginning on the first day of the applicable pay period. Some things bear repeating. Beginning on the first day of the applicable pay period, the annual rate of basic pay for each career employee shall be increased by 15%. By 15%. By the way, quite frankly, I'd like to have it be more than 15%. But I'm going to say 15% now because I've got to start someplace, and I'm juxtaposing their salaries to the salaries of Houston firefighters and Houston police officers. So now let's take a look at the chart with the 15% increase in mind. First year again, TSA officer, $40K now, 15% increase, the raise will take them to $46,000 first year, $6,000 pay increase. And they earn every penny of it. And I would defend this anywhere, anytime, any place in the presence of anyone. They earn every penny. Houston firefighters first year are at $59K. Police, $78,500. Well, they'll be at 46. As I said, I think that it should be more, but I'm juxtaposing and I'm going to use this as my starting point. And in the second year, they will have $56K from $49K, $56,000 from $49,000. That's the increase again to $56,000. And the firefighters are at $62,000. By the way, the firefighters earn their money. The police officers earn their money. This is not to say that they should not have what they have. It is to say that the TSA officers are underpaid, that they have not been treated justly. They have not been treated fairly. And we are talking about liberty and justice for all. Well, that's got to include these TSA officers. So, second year, $56,000 with the raise from $49,000. Firefighters are at $62,000 approximately. All of these are approximations. And the police officers are at $80,000. $80,000. Again, I think the TSA officers merit more. This is a starting point. I then go take us out to 10 years. 10 years for a TSA officer, you're at approximately $72,500. With the raise, $83,000. That's a raise of 15% in each of these classes that I've called to your attention. The firefighter is at $71,000. And the police officer is at $103,000 to $140,000, and this is in Houston, Texas. And by the way, I think these police officers merit this pay. They earn this pay. I think the firefighters merit the pay. They earn the pay. But I also think that the TSA officers earn the pay and they deserve more pay. I'm here in the Congress of the United States of America. I have the ability to lobby on behalf of them, to speak on behalf of them, and to speak on behalf of we the people. And I believe that we the people would want to see a 15% raise for the TSA officers who serve us with great distinction across the length and breadth of our country. This bill has been filed. I filed this bill just recently on April the 17th. On April the 17th. Again, it is H.R. 8411. H.R. 8411. And it is a bill to increase the annual rate of basic pay for career employees of the Transportation Security Agency and for other purposes. And I will add now to increase that pay to 15%. This is justice. This is what justice looks like. We see what their work product looks like when we pass through the airports. And we understand now that when they are not properly paid and the airports are understaffed, we understand how that impacts us personally. So we see what justice looks like. we see what the injustice perpetrated upon them looks like, and we see how that injustice is also being filtered down or filtered to, I don't know whether it's up or down, but one way or another, to the flying public, because the flying public then finds themselves missing planes. Planes are delayed. We need to do more. Let's have them back to work with their pay that they're receiving currently, and let's have them get it timely, but let's also do this. Let's give them a 15% raise. This is where I stand. This is where I stand. And I stand on these words. The person who is to be quoted is not known to me, so I cannot give proper attribution. But I can tell you they're not my words. But these words are important, and I think they speak well of what we must do. Some measure their lives by days and years, others by heartthrobs, passions, and tears. But the surest measure under God's sun is what for others in your lifetime have you done. Let us do something for TSA workers, not only in our lifetime, but let's do it as soon as possible so that we can make a difference for them in their lifetimes. I yield back on this topic, but Mr. Speaker, I now move to another place to embrace another topic. Once again, I rise, Mr. Speaker. Once again, I rise to address we the people. Once again, I rise to address we the people, those who believe in government of the people, by the people, for the people. Those who believe that all persons are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We the people who believe in liberty and justice for all. We the people who believe in something as simple and as basic as fair play, as respect, being respectful, showing the proper courtesies, showing the country that we understand that if the country is to have harmony within, we the people have to respect each other within. We the people, I rise in the name of we the people. And today, as I rise in the name of we the people, I would remind us that I am the Al Green, who is not only unbought, not only unbossed, not only unafraid, not only liberated, but also censured. Censured, but not silenced. Censured, but not silenced. My censure took place because in this very chamber, I, at a joint session of Congress, reminded the President that he did not have a mandate to cut Medicaid, to cut Medicare and Social Security. Many members of the press will print that I said he didn't have a mandate. They are being inaccurate and they're misleading, and I think it's done with intentionality because they would want it said that I said he didn't have a mandate and then there would be a big debate about it. But no, I said he didn't have a mandate to cut Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security, and I still stand on this. And the President went on to impose one of the biggest cuts on health care ever seen, and we're still suffering from this today. So I rise in the name of we the people, understanding the consequences of the cuts that were made. I have had an experience with one of my constituents, a constituent who needed a double lung transplant, a constituent who saw his premiums go up exponentially to the extent that he could not afford to pay for that premium that would allow him to have the double lung transplant. I rise on his behalf His story is a story that needs to be heard and needs to be told. That story is an important story. Double lung transplant. I rise on his behalf to show the injustice in what occurred when I took my stand and called it to the attention of the country, the injustice that occurred after I called it to the attention of the country and the world paid attention and noticed that the injustice took place. We exposed the injustice. It was exposed right here in this house. So I rise today to mention that this man who needed this double lung transplant, we had to help him to make sure he got his premiums paid, and we did. He came to our office for help. And we wanted to make sure that he got that double lung transplant. Friends, I'm proud and honored to say he has received the double lung transplant, and he is doing well. In spite of, not because of this president, but in spite of. This president doesn't respect the right of human beings to have good health care. This is a human right. This is a right that all people should have, especially in this, the richest country in the world, good health care. But the disrespect doesn't end there. It doesn't. This is a president who has portrayed himself as the Pope, President of the United States of America. The audacity to portray himself as the Pope. This is the president. And he published it. He published this depiction of himself as the Pope. And I have on this poster, I trust that it can be read at the bottom, but if it cannot, for fear that it cannot, I'll hold it up. Donald Trump is not the Pope. Well, we know this. And he should not depict himself as such. The Pope. But I don't know why it would surprise us, to be quite candid with you, that he would do this after the way he has disrespected the Latino community. Disrespected the Latino community by defining persons who are here undocumented as illegals in such a way as to cause all persons who are Latino, look like they're Latino, caught speaking Spanish, all persons to become suspect. And under ICE, these persons who have been suspect have been treated disrespectfully. You don't have to treat people in an inhumane way to police them. You don't have to do it. And you surely don't have to kill them. You don't have to kill them while they're kneeling or face down, shot many times. You don't have to kill them as they're driving past you in an automobile. You don't have to do that. This is a disrespect for human life that this president has shown. Disrespect for human life. So I'm not sure that it should surprise us to see this, his disrespect for the Catholic Church, for people who are the followers of Catholicism. It doesn't surprise me that he would do it, but he shouldn't. This level of disrespect is unbecoming the office and the officer who holds the title President of the United States of America. Unbecoming. But he didn't stop there. He has depicted the Obamas in a very unpleasing, unpleasant, disgraceful, disdainful way. And he has refused to apologize for a video showing the Obamas as apes. I didn't bring the actual picture. I have it. But people are very sensitive, and they don't want to see that. But we have to talk about that because this is disrespect for people of color, regardless as to who you are. It is disrespect. It's disrespectful of people of color. And this is the same level of disrespect and indecency that was utilized to enslave people in this country, the United States of America. And good Christians, many of them, not all, but a good many of them justified the enslavement of human beings because in their theology, the human beings were closer to apes than they were to the Homo sapiens, the human beings that you and I happen to be a part of, that class of human beings. Well, this president went out of his way, it seems, to do this, to disrespect the Obamas. But he didn't stop there. This president had the audacity, the unmitigated gall, to do something that is absolutely inane and insane. He has portrayed himself as Jesus Christ. He has depicted himself as Jesus Christ. And you'll see on this poster that I've noted, Donald Trump is not Jesus. Now, he can make specious statements, questionable statements after he's done this, and try to convince some people, oh no, I was just pretending to be a physician. I was trying to show myself as a physician. Well, most physicians that I know don't have all of this taking place as they are standing over a patient. They don't have, looks like an eagle flying, planes flying through the air, Statue of Liberty. Don't have persons looking in awe as the physician lays a hand on a patient. Don't have what appears to be a person or an image of someone that is human-like, perhaps an angel with wings above. Mr. President, people are not so low of IQ, as you would say it, as to believe that you are not representing yourself as Jesus. People, you use that term low IQ. So you think all of us are low IQ people. All of us would think that you are a physician. Mr. President, we are not. People are not. We the people are not. And we the people, Mr. President, find this disgraceful. We find it unacceptable. We find it shameful. And we the people believe that you should acknowledge that you were wrong. You don't have to apologize. Just say you were wrong to do this. But you won't. You won't, because you find yourself to be above all and above the law. And in this depiction, above humanity. But Mr. President, I want you to know that there will be a record for posterity. There will be a record for posterity. Earlier, I talked about legislation that I've already filed. Now, Mr. President, I'm going to mention a resolution, legislation that I will file. I will file legislation, Mr. President, so that those who look through the vista of time will know that at least one person, there may be others, I'm not speaking for anybody but myself. So I say at least one person, and there may be many others, I don't know. But I do know what I will do. I don't speak for any political party. I speak for myself and everybody who agrees with me. And I believe we the people have among us many who will agree. I have this resolution that I will file. Permit me to read the style of the resolution. It reads, resolution condemning President Donald J. Trump, condemning, repeating, resolution condemning President Donald J. Trump for his disgraceful, despicable, and disrespectful social media posts depicting himself as Jesus Christ diminishing the dignity of the presidency and bringing disrepute to the office. Diminishing the dignity and bringing disrepute to the office of the presidency. It would seem to me, Mr. President, that you knew or should have known that this would be unacceptable. You knew or should have known. In fact, I have made a few points with that language. Here in the resolution, I have language that says, all who hold public trust, especially those who hold the nation's highest office, bear a heightened responsibility to uphold respect for the diverse religious beliefs in the American people within our population. All of us, especially those who hold public trust. And then I go on to add in the resolution, the President of the United States of America knew or should have known acts by the President of the United States of America that trivialize or exploit any religious symbolism for personal or political purposes are inconsistent with the spirit of mutual respect and dignity that underpin a pluralistic society. This is beneath the dignity of the presidency. And the president knew or should have known this. I go on to say that the president knew or should have known, President of the United States of America knew or should have known that respect for religions by the president is essential to maintaining unity and mutual understanding among the people of all faiths and backgrounds in the United States of America. He knew or should have known. I'm going to move down to what will be one of my last comments, and this one. The President of the United States knew or should have known that the presidency is an office intended to embody the highest standards of respect and integrity and seriousness, and conduct such as this undermines the essential qualities, undermines those essential qualities of dignity and respect, and erodes the respect for the office of the presidency, the respect that the office is intended to command. The president knew or should have known that he is diminishing the presidency in the eyes of the world. So it's not just a little thing. It's not just something, oh, that's just Donald. He's just behaving. Well, when we didn't stop him earlier, when he was depicting the Obamas as he did, and we didn't stop him when he depicted himself as the Pope, and we didn't stop him when he disrespected Latinos, he has now devolved into this. And this devolution is harmful to the presidency. So as a result of what he has done to cause harm to the presidency, it is resolved that the House of Representatives condemns President Donald John Trump for his disgraceful, despicable, and disrespectful Truth Social post depicting himself as Jesus Christ on April 12, 2026, diminishing the dignity of the presidency and bringing disrepute to the office. Resolved. That is one of the things that we have resolved. But there's another one. It is also resolved that Donald John Trump, President of the United States of America, should state publicly that his depicting himself as Jesus Christ was disgraceful and offensive. Disgraceful and offensive. Not just to those who are Catholics, but to all persons of all religions. It doesn't just end with this depiction. This is the genesis of it. There are revelations yet to come as it relates to this. And the president knew or should have known that this kind of disrespect is not something that we should tolerate. And I will not. Others may. Let them do what they may, I do what I must. This is why I will be filing this resolution. I will be filing this resolution to condemn the president for this distasteful, disdainful, disrespectful behavior. And I can only say to this country, we have to stop him. I don't mean physically. No, there are proper political and legal methodologies by which he can be stopped. He's got to be stopped. He is out of control. This is a superb example of how far out of control the President of the United States is. He has to be stopped. He has to be stopped. If we don't stop him, he will do what we all perceive he will do. We, the people, know that this is where his plan is. His plan is to stay on beyond his term of office. How do you know? Because that was his plan at the end of his first term of office. He incited the insurrection. He incited the insurrection. He incited the insurrection. And he intends to stay on again beyond his term of office. We, the people, can stop this. We can stop it before he causes harm that is irreparable to our country, to the image of the country and the people within the country. We can stop it. And there is one means that we have available to us that we can employ. And I believe we, the people, must use it, and I've tried several times, and I plan to try again. And that is to impeach him. Impeachment is a lawful, political process within the Constitution that allows we, the people, to remove a president who has committed high crimes and misdemeanors. Yes. And we, the people, can do it. And by the way, I won't get into what high crimes and misdemeanors are today, but I will tell you this. When Andrew Johnson was impeached, in Article 10 of the Articles of Impeachment against Andrew Johnson, a high crime and misdemeanor, or high misdemeanor as it was called then, was his speaking ill of Congress. For speaking ill of Congress, Andrew Johnson was impeached. We, the people, decide what the high crime and misdemeanor is. There is no appeal to any court when the president is impeached. We, the people, make that determination. And we, the people in this House of Representatives, we have more than enough empirical evidence to conclude that impeachment is necessary. But I only have to have the will to do it. The way is there. This level of disrespect is indicative of where he's going. And we, the people, can stop him with impeachment. This is indicative of where he thinks he should be. He has no problems with the word authoritarian. Does not really offend him. In fact, given that he celebrates and tries to get authoritarians re-elected to office, doesn't always succeed. given that he does this, it appears that he wants to be classed and ranked and styled as an authoritarian. But the truth is, that is devolving. He has no problems with that. He is devolving into a dictator in the United States of America. Someone would say, well, that's impossible, not in this country. It is possible if we don't use the political tool of impeachment. It's entirely possible. He has command of the military. He commands the military in ways that are impeachable. But we have not done so. And when I say we, I really mean we here in the House of Representatives. We have the empirical evidence. I'm not going through the articles that we might levy against him, but I want you to know that the empirical evidence is there. We only but have to have the will. The way is there. But he is devolving our society, our military, his means of managing it, into a might makes right military. A might makes right by whatever means he chooses. By whatever means he chooses to accomplish the goal that he chooses. If he chooses to go to war without Congress, go to war. Might makes right. It's been said by the Secretary of what I would like to call defense, but is now the Secretary of War, that we negotiate now with bombs. That's how we negotiate, with bombs. Might makes right. Any means he chooses to accomplish a goal, and then at the end, he says, look at what I've done. Couldn't have done that if I'd followed the Constitution. Well, every time he does this, a little bit of the Constitution becomes meaningless. And at some point, we won't have a Constitution that people will see as meaningless. It will become meaningful. We won't see it as meaningful. We will see it as meaningless because the president walks on it daily. Might makes right. Any means he chooses. Not necessary, but means that he chooses. So this is where he's headed, from here to dictatorship. Yes, I'm among the first to say it, and I'm saying it right here on the floor of the House of Representatives. Remember, unbought, unbossed, unafraid. I say it here. So when I say it back in my community, I will tell people I've already said that. Yes, he wants to be a dictator right here in this country, the United States of America, and impeachment is a means by which we can stop him. We must move forward. We must stop him, remove him from office by virtue of a trial in the Senate, remove him from office by his being found guilty in the Senate, remove him from office. Let him leave in the shame and disgrace that he has earned. He's earned shame and disgrace. And they know it. My brethren, my friends, my colleagues, brothers and sisters across the aisle and on this side of the aisle know it. He's earned it, and we should bestow it upon him. Let him leave in shame and disgrace, that he richly should be rewarded. And as he does so, let us remind ourselves that we will have done what is expected under the Constitution of the United States of America. There are those who would say, Mr. Speaker, that you shouldn't impeach him because the Senate won't convict him. Well, he'll still be impeached, and that ought to be on his record. There ought to be those among us who are willing to show and stand and say, this is what he merits for his dastardly deeds done that are contrary to the Constitution, that are impeachable by virtue of being high crimes and misdemeanors. Yes, let's let the record show that he was impeached again. He doesn't want to be impeached. And there are people here who want to impeach him, but they don't want to say so. I understand it. Well, I'm saying so. He should be impeached. And I assure you that when all is said and done, when the last word is written after all of this kind of insidious behavior, when the last word is said and the last word is written, we the people will have spoken. We the people will have the last word. Donald John Trump will be impeached again. I yield back the balance of my time.
Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities towards the president. Members are reminded to direct their remarks to the chair and not to a perceived viewing audience. The chair will receive a message.
Speaker, message from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker,
Madam Secretary.
I have been directed by the Senate to inform the House that the Senate has agreed to S. Conres 33, a concurrent resolution setting forth the congressional budget for the United States government for fiscal year 2026 and setting forth the appropriate budgetary levels for fiscal years 2027 through 2035, in which the concurrence of the House is requested.
Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 3rd, 2025, the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Schweikert, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Certain irony having the message from the Senate come in just as I'm about to actually walk through some of the absolutely fraudulent math in their document, but we'll get to that. Let's see. I've been in Congress now 16 years. I believe I'm almost to a record, at least over the last decade, of coming here to the floor, doing math, doing budget presentations, talking about the demographics, talking about what's going on, and realizing, is there anyone listening? You know, we'll do shiny objects all day long. I'm enraged about the president doing this, or I'm mad about Biden doing this. Here's something. And at the same time, Mr. Speaker, I believe today we will borrow $87,000, $88,000 every second. Every second. In 6 years, and I think my math is 6 years, 4 months, if you're on Social Security, the way the law is as of today, you get a 24% cut in your check in 6 years, 4 months. How many people have you heard come behind these microphones the last 6 months, other than myself, and say we have a moral obligation to deal with this? In 6 years, 3 months, the Medicare trust fund is gone. And if you're a hospital, you're getting a 12% cut. You think you're going to get to see your doctor. How many people have come behind these microphones and said, here's a path to reform the price of health care? But we're not supposed to talk about these things, particularly because it's always an election year. I have a 3-year-old we've adopted. Greatest gift God has ever given someone. We need it if you use a 6% generational discount rate, reasonable, maybe slightly high. You need 104% of his lifetime earnings just to pay the pensions of the federal government. Is there any understanding out there what we've done to your retirement, what we've done to our kids? Anyone actually care about the math? So we're going to walk through it one more time. And this time, I'm going to try to make an impassioned plea. We just had a reconciliation. Remember, 1974 Budget Control Act built this reconciliation process where you can get around the filibuster in the Senate. The reason we do it is to get around the filibuster in the Senate. And instead, we're going to do this skinny one as it's being talked about because it's a way to get the DHS funding because Democrats won't work with us on the budget. But when we do it, we're giving up an opportunity to maybe actually tell the truth about where the finances are of this country. But the hallways this week have been full of tens and tens of thousands of lobbyists, people lobbying us saying, I just need more money for my thing. And then you go and point out saying, one of the best examples I have is Doge. Okay, Remember when Doge started, we're going to save $2 trillion. Then it was $1 trillion. Then by the time it was done, if you go to the Doge.gov website, it's a couple hundred billion, maybe 250. But the actually executed portion in this fiscal year is 7. And I think that's Congress's fault because there were lots of ideas we haven't executed because we'd have to go tell the truth to people. But, Mr. Speaker, we will borrow more money today, than every dime that Doge saved us that we put into law. But think about the theater, think about the speeches, think about the angry people on cable television talking about it. This is a math-free zone. So, all right, our traditional pie chart. You see the blue portion? That's what I, as a member of Congress, what every member of Congress, that's all we get to vote on, unless it's a budget reconciliation, and therefore we're allowed to talk about mandatory spending. Understand, this blue area, every dime is borrowed. And about $500 billion of Medicare, other things. We had actually, I think it was a year ago, because that's the date I had, I think we had multiple months where we had to borrow money to pay for our borrowing. Now, it will change because we just had our month of tax collection we're in. But if you do the first 6 months of this fiscal year, for every dollar that came into this government, we spent $1.47. But yet, the philosophy around here is no one ever got unelected by spending too much money. And it's true. I'm running for governor in Arizona. I've given up on trying to save Congress. And I will meet incredible people that are stressed out of their mind. They are poorer today than they were in past years because of inflation, and wages haven't closed that gap. And then you talk to them about why was there inflation. And I would argue it's the scale of the spending, it's the scale of the borrowing, the lack of fixation on things that raise productivity, because wages go up. Remember your high school economics class. What are the two things that raise wages? Inflation, well, that doesn't get you anything, but it raises wages, but your purchasing power gets eaten away. And productivity. We're starting to see the productivity curve, and I would argue much of that's because some of the things we've done in the tax legislation over the last year. But we still haven't closed the gap from the Biden inflation years. My brothers and sisters in Arizona, if you're in the working class, you are poorer today when we do your purchasing power than you were 5 years ago. And yet, we have another problem. This here is the demographics update from the Census Bureau of the United States. If you dig through it, it basically will tell you a prediction that sometime in the next 5 years, the United States almost goes to negative population growth. It will tell you at this moment, we are pretty much at zero or flat population growth. And I'll get some people go, oh, that's wonderful. Great. You tell me how to finance your Social Security and your Medicare, because those are designed as pay-as-you-go programs. Today's workers pay for today's recipients. You earned it. I got to figure out a way to finance it. And when I get my Democrat colleagues that say, oh, we'll just raise taxes. Think of this, 2032, 6 years from now, Social Security and Medicare trust funds are gone. So 2033, 7 years from now, just to cover that shortfall, our rough estimate is $638 billion of tax hikes. For that 1 year, 1 year. And the next year it's more, and the next year it's more, and the next year it's more. You run for United States Senate. In your first term in the Senate, the trust funds are gone. During the next presidential term, the trust funds are gone. The math is so much easier if we step up and deal with it today, because we actually get a few more years of actuarial math. I would argue the fact we don't deal with it is absolutely immoral. The fact that when I walk into the political meetings and you almost get booed because you got to start telling people the truth about the math. So let's go talk about more shiny objects, more things to enrage you, more things that basically are tabloid television to distract you from the fact that I think during this speech, we're going to borrow another $250, $300 billion. Or excuse me, $1 million. Because if we're borrowing about $88,000 a second, that's like $270 million an hour. I mean, it's insane. So let's actually walk some more through this. Last week was tax day. If you, as just a regular, middle-of-the-road American, middle income, those things, the actual everything, the day after tax day was your tax freedom day. If you add up the federal income tax, the state income tax, property taxes, those things. That's where we're at. How do you build an argument that we have a spending problem when in 3 years, actually less than 3 years, the majority of our spending goes to our brothers and sisters who are 65 and up? It's a demographic problem. Back to what the census was telling us. We got a math problem. And it turns out it's not Democrat, it's not Republican, it's demographics. Now, I believe the Democrats absolutely refuse to tell the truth. We'll tax rich people. And then I come here and show the math saying you can take every dime from every ultra-rich person in America and you can only pay for 9 months of operating this government. You can actually do every tax that's been offered by Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and it actually produces about 2% of GDP. So far this fiscal year, we're borrowing almost 8% of GDP. Anyone see a math problem? But rage is a political tactic. Welcome to what the political class lives on. And we got if you take a look at net receipts, the reason I show this chart is we're going to have to do something that's also really difficult. The majority of income to your federal government comes from income taxes. But if you look at our economic growth, much of our growth right now is because of building data centers and capital projects. We got a problem. When this dark purple here, that's individual income taxes. This lighter blue here, that's what we call payroll taxes. That's your Social Security contribution, that's your Medicare contribution, that's your unemployment contributions. So this is already, this over here, when you start to actually look at these much smaller pieces, that's corporate income taxes. That's customs duties. We got a tax problem because this is fairly stagnant. Why is it stagnant? It's because labor force participation, our brothers and sisters are getting older. They've saved up their money. They're able to retire. The growth in the economy is substantially because of capital expenditures, not of wage growth. So we got to cap what we call an income tax stack, income to government's problem in the formula. But yet you look at our outlays, and I know this is sort of crazy to look at, but we're sort of, this is Social Security. That's obligated. Remember, every month we have to borrow. Social Security holds, think of them as treasury bills. They hand them over to to Treasury. Treasury cashes them in, gives Social Security money. We pay interest. Actually, it's a fairly decent interest rate back to the trust fund, back to Social Security. That's what runs out in a little over 6 years. But you start to look at this. You see this black line here? This is the spending that's absolutely just lives on the credit card. And why this is important, how do I get people to actually read? Go look at the CBO report from February. It basically says in 9 budget years, we'll have a $3.1 trillion running deficit. $1 trillion is structural, meaning we are overspending by $1 trillion, but another 2.1 is just interest. And that was assuming the interest rates from the end of last year. You're heading towards a time where interest, now it's a decade plus out, interest will be the single biggest cost in this government. Interest will be our big, that buys you what? Well, you know, if you hold a table, and I'll get people saying, well, foreigners, the vast majority of debt is held by us. I used to be Maricopa County Treasurer years ago. We would actually take the tax collections from our school districts, from the 3,300 taxing districts I had. Maricopa County is a huge, huge, huge county. And we invest in T-bills and full faith and credits and those things to keep the money safe, but also get a little bit of interest. China, other governments have been slowly getting rid of U.S. debt because they need it just to cover their own spending. And my fear is the extraordinary privilege that we have as a country. It's really two things, Mr. Speaker. We are the reserve currency of the world, meaning the world trades in our currency. It's one of the reasons there's such an appetite for U.S. debt, because they need that debt. You're actually seeing some discussions right now as the war is going on of some countries not having enough U.S. currency for their pledges and the opportunity to offer swaps and those things. That's just the plumbing of money around the world. What happens if we lose full faith and credit? Or we start being the reserve currency, or just become at less, where you need much fewer dollars because there's other baskets or commodity backed. That's a real problem because our interest rates go up. The second extraordinary privilege we have, which we're going to have an honest conversation, a way to exploit it, is smart people, productive people, entrepreneurial people want to do business here. They want to live here. This is an amazing country. President Trump talks about this repeatedly. We're insane often. We educate people at our institutions. Wait, you have an engineering degree. Go home. We're sending you out of the country to compete with us. Did I mention we're basically at zero population growth? I did a presentation a couple weeks ago showing the abstract, a really interesting, I think it was Manhattan Institute, did this report saying populations that Biden allowed to come across the border, if we do the means of calculations, that costs us about $100,000 per person in additional actual lost spending. But someone that comes, that we keep here, that we just educated, they have an engineering degree, master's degree, graduate degree, we make $3 million in taxes off them. You cannot make the unified theory of stabilizing U.S. borrowing unless you adopt technology, unless you do a massive reform of how healthcare is spending, legalize competition, this concept of the creative destruction that used to drive the next generation of innovation. Think about it. I think this Congress, if Blockbuster Video had come in here, handed out enough checks and hired enough lobbyists, we would have slowed down the internet to stop Netflix. We live the destruction all the time, and we've almost stopped it. Remember the lobbyists I was just complaining about running? Many of them are wonderful people. They're nice. They're hired to do their job. It's part of the First Amendment. You have the right to actually petition your government, tell a story, those things. But often it's money or block my competition. We need to deal with the reality. The rest of the world is stealing our smart people, many of the ones we educate. We need them here because we need their productive capacity. We got to start growing. Remember the whole wage thing? Wages go up by productivity. We need them. And then we need to convince the debt markets. We're going to do something on debt because, Mr. Speaker, another fun point you'll like. Today, Greece can sell a 10-year bond cheaper than the United States. So according to the world debt markets, Greece today and about a dozen other countries have a better credit rating on a 10-year bond, actually it's a 10-year paper, than the United States. Doesn't that tell anyone anything? Is anyone listening? But it's an election year, so maybe it's just another year of avoiding the truth, not saving the future, basically saying whatever's necessary to win the next election. I have found, look, I'm in a 50-50 district. I campaign on fiscal sanity. Turns out if you tell people the truth, the voters are often so much smarter than the elected class. They get it. They don't like it. But wouldn't it be amazing if our campaigns were run on, here's my idea to save Social Security, here's my ideas to save Medicare, here's my idea to grow the economy, here's my idea to save the future for our kids and your retirement. But instead, we're going to run our campaigns beating the ever-living you-know-what out of each other, just like you've seen some of the other presentations here on the floor already today, where it's personality wars. Because that's what will get you on cable news tonight. And just to make the point one more time, all around the country, we're closing schools. It's not some sinister plot. We have far too many school buses. We have far too many school districts. We have far too many school buildings. Why? Because we don't have enough kids. Next year, there will be fewer 18-year-olds in America than there were 20 years ago. Next year, there will be double those of us. I just turned 64, so next year I'm 65. Of us who are 65 and up. It's math. Look, I remember sitting with a statistics professor at Arizona State University in 1982, I think. And she was making the point, hey, you guys have a problem. There's this like 76 million, those within this baby boomer quartile. How are you going to finance it? So apparently we knew there were baby boomers coming 65 years ago. I'm really glad we planned for it. And now we have to deal with telling the truth, and this is why, this is the stuff that gets most politicians unelected, because you're not prepared for all the groups out there that are paid to lie to you as voters. Remember, what the hell, tell the truth. We had the insurance executives in front of Ways and Means about a month ago. Groups like AARP that will do actually, I will tell you the group in Arizona is fairly impressive. They do some good things. But the CEO of one of the biggest insurance company in America said, oh yeah, last year we gave them $9 billion to basically advocate for our Medicare Advantage program. What happens when everything's become about the money? And you start to look at this, this is sort of the running debt and unfunded liabilities. This isn't mine. This isn't from my joint economic team. This is from the CBO. $88.4 trillion is the 75-year unfunded liability. If you actually look at the 30-year, it's actually pretty much the same, because the calculation of the population is going to their reward. You start to look at these. You don't think the bond market is going to say, hey, I'm not buying a 30-year U.S. bond? It's just math. It's not my opinion, it's just math. And we start to actually look, okay, so this one will drive people insane. But it turns out I got to give the Trump administration and the Treasury some credit. They put out the fiscal report of the United States government about 2 weeks ago. It is really well written. For anyone that's geeky, it's not that hard to read. Give up 2 hours of not watching Netflix and just skim through it. But in this report, I had to actually pull up my calculator because they don't actually say it, but it's in the charts. Congressional Budget Office says 30 years from now. So my little boy who's 3 years old, when he's 33, hopefully just getting his family and his career and those things going, CBO says we'll be about 175% debt to GDP ratio. Okay, that may not mean a lot to you, but that's big. This number looks more like it's 250% coming from the Treasury 2 weeks ago. Why this is a stressor. I will get the brain trust around here that says, oh, we have lots of assets. We do, but here's the assets as calculated by the Treasury, basically saying total assets, we got about $6 trillion held by the federal government, but we have 47.8 trillion of liabilities. 47.8 trillion, and this isn't my opinion, it's from our own Treasury 2 weeks ago. Anyone see a math problem? How many people did you see come behind these microphones or on cable news the last week say, hey, even the Trump administration's Treasury, which has some really smart people over there, put out a report because we all are members of Congress. We're the management board of the biggest entity in the world economy-wise. We all read this, right? And then we wonder why Congress's credibility is getting pretty close to zero. We don't do the actual job. So let's actually have just 2 or 3 things here, then we're going to talk about what the Senate just sent us. Debt financing costs over the next 10 years. So, Mr. Speaker, a while back we did a budget resolution. That budget resolution says we're going to all agree we're going to actually only borrow 3% of GDP. Okay, that's actually, you would fit, actually, you'd make the world debt markets and those things much more happy. Got a little technical problem. So far, as of last month, we're already, our financing cost, the financing cost, just the interest, is 3.3% of GDP. First 6-7 months of this fiscal year, we're borrowing almost 8% of GDP. Do you see? So we do these things. We do these things that are absolute theatrical fraud. A couple weeks ago, we did a balanced budget amendment, which did fail. But there was absolutely no discussion of the fact that if you were to balance the budget today, which I can do, but you have to cut half of federal spending to make it work with the economic effects. Do we ever tell people that? We go to our town halls and say, I'm for a balanced budget, and if we do it next year, I got to cut half of federal spending to make it work. People don't understand the scale. Remember, what was it? A year ago, for every dollar in, we borrowed we spent $1.43. So far this fiscal year, every dollar in, we're spending $1.47. But here's what's terrifying. And we think this number has just gone up because now the long-run projected interest rates are higher. In 9 budget years, 4.6% of the entire economy will just be interest. Functionally, 9 budget years, interest will be almost the same as all of Social Security spending. Look, today Social Security is what, like 1.6, 1.7 trillion this year? Interest will be 1.2. If you do also the interest we have to pay back to the trust funds. Welcome to our world. And I think one of the debt research groups put out a paper yesterday or day before just talking about 1% rise in interest rate, $3-4 trillion of additional spending. And yet, every single day, we seem to do things to just scare the crap out of our bankers. Because we got to turn to our brothers and sisters, whether the county treasurers, other governments, other people, other investors, a little family in the Midwest who saves up their money and buys government debt. And they're starting to worry, are we ever going to take this seriously? So let's actually have some fun on this. This is the Senate budget resolution that just got delivered. As I started this presentation, just got delivered. There is a small problem. Let's start with the thing that enrages me the most. We passed an agreement that we were going to move to 3% of the economy's size in borrowing. Using the Senate resolution's own math, you'd actually have to cut $9.74 trillion in spending. They don't say how, in actual spending. And remember, you'd also have to reduce net interest by another $1.5 trillion. See that little chart on the bottom? That's actually what the Senate resolution pretends we're going to do. So you start looking at these things. See if I have it in. So this is the big boy chart. See that? So they send us a resolution saying, we're going to pretend that you combine those two, we're just going to pretend there's $10 trillion that's going to disappear over the next 10 years. Do we have a moral obligation to tell each other, tell the public, tell the bond markets, tell our bankers how we're going to do that? Remember the beginning pie chart. Every dime a member of Congress votes on is borrowed, plus another almost $500 billion comes out of mandatory spending that's borrowed. And we're going to accept a budget resolution that says, hey, don't worry. There's going to be like $10 trillion that's just magically going to disappear. And this is us. Maybe the philosophy that no one ever gets unelected by spending too much money or telling the truth about the math. And I'll throw everything I have at this, and eventually you guys will vote over the top of me, and I'll go home just mad as hell, and my wife will look at me and say, why the hell are you still there? And then I'll hug my kids, and I'll apologize to my kids for what we've done to them. And then I'll go to my next set of meetings at my office, and it'll be groups of people demanding more money. Look, this chart is almost a bit hard to understand. This is basically the budget resolution that just came from the Senate saying, magically, we're going to be down here. This is 3%. But here's actually the CBO projection. Now understand, we're running hotter than the CBO projection of debt to GDP. But we're going to pretend that somehow this gap is just going to disappear. And then when you start to look at the reality, Senate budget resolution functional changes are $1.4 trillion higher than baseline. Remember, this is something that should have happened in regular appropriations. We're having to use a budget reconciliation because our brothers and sisters on the left side, the Democrats, basically are terrified of their base. They can't vote for DHS funding because there's immigration enforcement. But it gives me a chance to sort of show when discretionary money spending is all borrowed, it has debt effects. Are we going to squander a budget reconciliation where we only need 50 votes plus the vice president, or 51 votes in the Senate? Are we going to walk away from a chance to just pay for it? Are we going to walk about the chance to do some budgetary reforms? We talk about waste and fraud all the time. How many times have I come behind this floor and talked about things like, I love Medicare Advantage. I love the concept of a program where you make a profit by helping seniors be healthier. I mean, look, some people might be doctors around here and actually understand how this works, but instead we have report after report after report after report and Wall Street Journal articles that talk about, hey, we're going to make our money by scoring people as sicker and get the spiff, even though often those people don't actually have that disease, are the ailments that we're paying premiums on. It's called risk scoring. Get rid of the risk scoring, pay more up front, and then incentivize saying you're going to make a profit by helping our brothers and sisters be healthier. 55% of the population is on Medicare Part C, Medicare Advantage. For anyone that's listening, particularly if you're one of the lobbyists, I want to save Medicare Advantage. You are going to run it into a brick wall if we don't do some of the reforms. Because at some point the left is going to take over here and they will crush this. Help me do the honorable thing of making a system that works, because the MedPAC reports themselves say it's potentially as high as $2 trillion we could save over 10 years. But it's a live for today, spend for today, grab every dime you can for today, get your bonus today, and burn down the future. These numbers, what is the joke one of our members says, the math ain't mathin'? So this is more just to help understand when every dime of discretionary spending is borrowed. This is just the $70 billion baseline. And understand, the Senate resolution is not for $70 billion. It's actually $70 billion in this committee, $70 billion in this committee. I think if I can add that up, that's $140 billion. But we're going to pretend they're only going to authorize to the 70, even though each committee has 70. But I respect it, because we know our Senate colleagues won't pork it up, right? So this is 70, but you start to look at the chart and understand this is if it was an even spending. That isn't the resolution. I'm going to show you another chart where it's all front-loaded. But you start to see this purple here, the light purple. That's just the financing cost of DHS spending that could have gone through regular appropriations, just because we borrow all this money. We don't pay for it. So what happens if what's the real request is we front load it? So when you do this, you spend it today and pay additional interest because you've loaded up the debt. The scale of that debt when you start to get out to 2035, the interest is more than the DHS spending from just that program. There's this term called interest fragility. It basically says the greatest threat to this country anymore is the fact that we're about to hand the bond market control of the government. They're going to decide what we can do, what we can't do, what we can pay for, what we can't pay for. And you think I'm making it up. You wait till the first day we have a failed bond, or just a stressed bond auction, and you watch this place pucker up and realize the sky is falling. You have a budget reconciliation that just came to us. Mr. Speaker, how do we get this body to do a single thing that's honorable? Let's cut some spending. Let's do the reforms. Let's change some of the program designs that we all promised we were going to do, that the Speaker actually promised me we were going to do, and convince the bond markets that we're not a bunch of children who don't tell the truth to our voters. And maybe we'll be rewarded by those lower interest rates that the President talks about that we need for housing, for everything else in our economy, because we're not getting that lower interest rate until we convince the bond markets that we're not out of our minds. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to yield back.
The gentleman yields. Does the gentleman have a motion?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House adjourn.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until noon on Monday next for morning hour debate.